Hi, Kate. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Oh, I haven't put in my earrings, so I'm going to start with that. These are my clitoris earrings that Sam 3D printed for me. And they felt appropriate for this evening, so there we go. You can't have a body part earring for a webinar about conception, then when can you? Basically what I'm going to do this evening is talk about what I did to conceive and the journey I went through and how, if replicated, that could support other people becoming pregnant as well. So I'm going to start my webinar presentation because I've spent ages on it, so I want to share it. So it is. There. Can you see that? Okay. Lovely. Okay, I need my other screen. No, I'm not there. I'm just a second. I'm just gonna move you. Apologies. There you go. You're above me now. So what I wanted to talk about this evening is why women start too soon when they're trying to conceive, because we're always told that it's so easy to get pregnant. And so they think, oh, I'll just stop birth control, or we'll just stop using a condom, or, you know, we'll start having sex more often, and miraculously, I will become pregnant. And it's not actually how it happens. Pregnancy is an absolute miracle, and it needs to be treated that way, as far as I'm concerned. But also, there are things that you can do to support the miracle happening. I just realised I need this there. Okay. So a little bit about my conception journey. I accidentally fell pregnant in 2015, and it's what I realized, actually, looking back at this, is that I remember saying to my mum, maybe it wasn't when I was in my early 20s, I want to get pregnant when I'm 32. And she said, well, when you're ready, I will help you. My mum's a nutritionist, and that was obviously just her attitude. She was like, okay, yeah, you know, all right for grandbabies, so I'll help you get pregnant when you're ready. What actually happened was that in 2015, I'd been struggling massively with asthma and eczema, and I decided to overhaul my diet to try and see if I could improve it. And I removed a lot of things from my diet, changed a lot of things I was doing, did a juice detox with my mum. So that entailed me having a Mediterranean diet for 6 weeks, followed by a juice detox for so then vegan for 3 days, juice detox for 3 days, which was like the most amazing experience. I felt so good afterwards. And then another 3 days vegan, and then it was kind of back to normal, as it were. And I got a cold, but then I felt absolutely amazing after this juice detox. And what I didn't know, because all I did in 2015 to track my cycle was use an app where I put in when my period was, and it told me when the next one would be, based on I don't know what. Based on the fact that my period was normally 28 days, my cycle was normally 28 days long. So as far as I was concerned, about a month and a half, 2 months after the juice detox, I was on day 27 of my cycle, and that is considered in rhythm method options as safe. However, because of the massive diet overhaul that I'd gone through, and the fact I'd started to lose weight and changed a lot of things about my body in general, my cycle had actually shifted by 2 weeks, and I was in smack bang in the middle of ovulation. And so getting frisky on a morning before work resulted in what I refer to as my detox baby, who is 10 this year, which is quite scary when I think about it. So it's basically made me realize, one, just how amazing the female body is, but two, the well, I basically was when I started to learn about the female body, and I wanted to really recognize why that had happened, why I'd let myself get accidentally pregnant, and how to make sure that in the future that didn't happen again without me meaning for it to happen. So I started using, after my period came back, after I'd had my eldest, I started using the app Natural Cycles, which you may or may not have heard of. And also I started to learn about something called cycle syncing. So this is basically the idea of the different phases of your cycle, and the fact that each one has different energy to it in terms of your hormones, but also in the way that you feel in that cycle. In that part of the cycle. And it just blew my mind that I hadn't been taught this as a teenager. And so I started learning more and more about it. I started buying books about it. And basically, the more I learned, the more fascinated I was about how intricate the female cycle is, and how our everything to do with our lifestyle affects it. We knew that we wanted to have another baby. So when it came to sort of 2018, 2019, I actually had a really bad back injury out of nowhere. And so I started to exercise a lot more than I had been doing, regular yoga, and just trying to build my body back up, build my core back up, but also thinking, if I want to have another baby, I don't particularly want to be struggling with my back, because I felt very fortunate in my first pregnancy. I didn't have any ailments at all. And the only time I remember having back pain is literally when I was in labour. And so I wanted to make sure that I could go through that again in the same scenario, yet sort of 3-4 years older. So at this point, I was actually beginning to be classed as a geriatric mother, as they call us so kindly in the NHS in the UK. So I also made sure that my diet was as clean as it possibly could be, and really embedded using my cycle as a way of life into everything I possibly could. And then we decided at the beginning of 2020 to start trying to conceive. So although what I didn't know at the time is that it takes 90 days for sperm to develop, which I'll talk a little bit more about later, I actually got my husband to stop drinking, because I thought that was a good idea. He was working for a beer company at the time, so he'd got into the habit of, a casual beer after work, casual beer during work, because there was a lot of beer available. And I was like, you're not doing that until I'm pregnant. And so we kind of did that together. I don't particularly drink anyway, but that was what I made him do. Made sure his diet was as good as mine as I possibly could do. And we started trying to conceive. So that's kind of my journey in that so far. And all I was doing at that point was tracking my temperature. And then I gradually introduced charting cervical mucus as I learned about how that worked, and timing as much as I possibly could our as it's known on Reddit, baby dance, to make sure that everything was happening at the right time. But we got to 3 cycles in, and it was like, this should have happened by now. Why isn't this happening? It was so easy the first time. And then I learned about cervix position. And the moment I felt my cervix change, it was like, this, right, okay, this is it. We're in peak fertility. I've got cervical mucus. My temperature hasn't risen yet, and my cervix has moved. And I stopped relying on the app. So up until this point, I've been using Natural Cycles, but it only tracks your temperature. And I thought, hang on a minute, there's something else here. And so I absolutely trusted that this final thing I'd learned, that I'd researched, learned about, found out about, was the thing that changed. And I fell pregnant on that cycle, so the 4th cycle. It wasn't because I finally relaxed. It wasn't because I tried harder, but it was because I actually had this kind of complete connection and conversation with my body. So I knew what was going on, and fell pregnant, which was very exciting and very scary because of doing it intentionally. So hopefully after watching this webinar, you will these are the ways I'm hoping that you will feel. So knowing what you need to do before you start trying. So that's the idea, is that rather than starting trying and sort of having a go and seeing what happens, you go, oh, right, well, I've prepared my body, I've made sure that everything is as healthy as possible, and so I've got that 25% chance available to me each time, each cycle. Stopping the things that you don't need to do anymore, but also if you know your fertile signs, you really put yourself in that 25% window, because as long as everything is perfectly lined up, then you have a 25% chance of conception. So just a little bit about what my clients say about me. Yeah, the word I hear the most is empowerment. So whether you're trying to conceive or trying to avoid pregnancy, understanding your body's fertile signs just opens up a massive, just an amazing communication with your body. This dialogue that you just won't have had before, because maybe you weren't told about it, most likely weren't told about it. You perhaps were on hormone or birth control. I love when I meet another woman who sort of has known about it for a bit longer. So I never took hormone or birth control. However, and I knew there was something else going on. However, it wasn't until I started learning about cycle syncing that it just all clicked into place. And when I meet another woman who goes, "Oh yeah, I know, I totally get what you mean," without me having taught her something, it's like I meet a kindred spirit. It's just absolutely wonderful. So each time I get to teach somebody, I get to have a new kindred spirit. So it might be possible that you've tried some things so far that aren't necessarily worth the money that you spent on them or the time that you spend using them. And this is sort of based on the experience I've had of speaking to women, and and finding comments that I've seen of kind of, oh, when I bought my first box of 30 LH strips, and I thought, oh, I'm not going to need to use all of these, and here I am 5 boxes later, and it breaks my heart that is what they think they need to use to get pregnant. And I know for someone it does work, but equally it can make it so much harder because they aren't very reliable. Predictive apps, as I say, I was using Natural Cycles. They work on an algorithm, not your body, and so you need to make sure that you know your body before you start using anything like that. Expensive femtech, such as an Oura ring, as an Apple Watch. There's a device called Daisy that looks at all your different hormone levels. I wouldn't recommend that people go there first. I think it's basically what I mean. But also speaking to a doctor too early, because you could end up down a track that you don't necessarily want to be on, and without having actually got to the root of what's happening internally first. So I've already shared quite a lot of this, but I will be sharing everything I did before trying to conceive, because I want other women to have the opportunity I had. Using the method I used, using the practices I used, it works with your body. It's not, this average cycle that's using an algorithm like you see on the apps. It is your body and it's your cycle, and it's not someone else's. And you do have to commit to it. It's funny, I was having a conversation about this and I was like, oh, it's an easy way of doing it. And it's like, but it's not an easy way of doing it. However, if you truly want to become pregnant and you truly want to make sure that you have a great experience in pregnancy, that your baby has the best opportunity ever, then what's wrong with committing to it? What's wrong with doing it? Giving it your all. I might say some things that people don't necessarily want to agree with in this presentation this evening, but equally, it's because it's what I truly believe in, and I think it's important to share. So finally, having certainty about your fertile window. I see so many Reddit posts from women who are asking strangers to tell them whether or not they're fertile. And it shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. We should be taught this easily. It should be readily available information. And I'd really like to share that with as many people as possible. So here is my list of things that I think women should do, and couples actually in general, before trying to conceive. And again, people might disagree with these, but this is my experience. This is what I believe. So the post that kills me that I've seen is drink till it's pink. Now, this is because I know that the egg you ovulate in the current cycle you are in started developing 12 months ago. We hear about potentially 90 days before ovulation, and that is the vital part. But truly, like, the real story is that it's actually 12 months from the point where a follicle starts developing right through to where it becomes ovulated. And so those final 90 days especially have a massive impact. It's where things like lifestyle changes, diet supplements, increasing fluids, they make a massive difference to the follicle you're developing in that stage. So you don't want to be poisoning the environment that you're trying to create life in with smoking, drinking, pot, whatever, because it really does matter what environment you are trying to create a baby in. If it's too difficult to do and you can't quit everything cold turkey, then find a priority. Smoking affects egg quality dramatically, and alcohol can also disrupt hormone production. So you find a way to start where you can, and go from there. I worked with a woman very briefly a few years ago who said she couldn't understand why she wasn't conceiving. And then she sort of told me about her weekly habits. And on a weekend, her and her husband drank a whole bottle of vodka between them, which blew my mind, really, because the concept of that and the hangover afterwards was just too much for me. But still, I said to her, I think if you really want to try and get pregnant, because she was a bit older as well, so egg health becomes really important. It's not about quantity when you get past sort of 35 to 40. It's about quality. So giving your eggs that best opportunity is really important. And I did say to her, please do, if you can, cut down at least a little bit. And I actually heard from her recently, she's actually onto her second pregnancy. So she did say that was what they did. so there you go. Because otherwise she was very healthy and ate well and exercise and everything, but had this drinking habit that was affecting her hormones, and it has an impact. So I talked about this already, but it's that trusting women on the internet above your own body. I've done it, I've been there, but because of what I know now, I wouldn't go back to it. If you learn to read your own fertile signs, you can trust your own body's wisdom over a stranger so much more. And your confidence will absolutely fly because of it. Ovulation strips, they don't tell you, so as I put here, they do not tell you that your body's trying to ovulate. That's all they tell you, is that your body's trying to ovulate. They don't confirm that ovulation has happened, but equally, by using an LH strip, you might, and your body's trying to ovulate but actually doesn't, and you've tried to conceive because you saw a peak on your LH strips, but actually your cervical mucus and your basal body temperature would show you that you actually ovulated 3 days later. So that's sort of how you can very easily miss the window, because it's not very accurate information, whereas there are actual signs that your body gives that will give you very much on the day information. You cannot expect perfection in cycle 1. And I say this as somebody who got pregnant accidentally. But even so, under perfect conditions, there's only a 25% chance of conception. But 80% of couples will conceive within the first 12 months. And when I say within the first 12 months, I do mean 12 months of looking after your body, tracking your cycle, and being aware of everything that you need to open and close it, well, to recognize an opening and closing of a fertile window. You can't be perfect, but you can work with good enough, and that's a great start. But equally, give yourself 6 to 12 cycles before you really start to panic as well. So here's what really matters and what you want to be doing, what can show you what actually does work. So we talked about before, sort of avoiding the poison of your body. feed your future baby before they exist. So everything you eat and drink today is influencing the follicles that are developing right now for your future cycles. So it's, again, not about perfection. It's not about restriction. It's about nourishment. So it's about whole foods over processed. It's about quality protein at every meal, eating the rainbow, having as many vegetables as you can possibly manage. And another factor is, for any PCOS ladies, the main thing you can do to support consistent ovulation is ensuring your blood sugar stays as even as possible. Elevated insulin lowers the sex hormone binding globulin, and it increases androgen production, basically increases testosterone as well, and it literally can stop ovulation. So avoiding things like sugary snacks, or if you do like a sugary snack, and I am definitely guilty of that one, pairing that with a protein. So if you have some chocolate, have some nuts with it. If you have equally, you could have some sort of chickpeas, so hummus, that kind of thing, if you're having something sweet, but also eating regular meals, so rather than allowing the body to go into kind of a starvation mode. So this is where physical preparation matters as well. A strong body handles 40 weeks of pregnancy and the marathon of birth far better than a depleted one. So building things like core strength, moving regularly, so you're not just preparing your body for pregnancy, but you're actually preparing the actual genetic material that will become your baby. As I said before, I did yoga daily. I was also running around after a toddler when I was preparing to conceive my second. So it is this finding the thing that works for you to build your body and to build the baby as well. Hydration. It's the first thing I say to women when I'm talking about cervical mucus, because cervical mucus is 98% water, and the cervical mucus is what keeps sperm alive inside your body and transports it on their journey to the egg. So if you've got not enough water or no water, that means no fertile mucus, no way for sperm to survive before it reaches the egg. So you could be timing everything perfectly, but if you're dehydrated, it could be quietly working against you. So you want to be aiming for that, sweet spot of like 2 liters at least a day. And it's one of the easiest, simplest things you can do to impact your fertility. And I know a lot about cervical mucus. I've watched some amazingly fantastic presentations on it, and it is fascinating stuff. What it does, how it works, and how it creates a pathway for the sperm. It's just absolutely phenomenal. I still, it's one of the main parts of fertility awareness that absolutely blows my mind is the way that the cervix and cervical mucus works. It's just fantastic. One thing that I feel isn't talked about enough, and I did touch on this earlier, is that if you've been on hormonal birth control, and I was speaking to a woman earlier who'd been on hormonal birth control for 15 years, you've been suppressing ovulation and even potentially creating the uterine lining, which is what literally cushions your baby and supports it for the whole of the pregnancy. So not ovulating, not creating a nice, thick, juicy uterine lining, hasn't had a normal hormone rhythm, hasn't been creating any sex hormones. When your body comes off hormonal birth control, it needs time to remember what it's supposed to do. So sometimes it can return within the first cycle. I know a couple of people who literally have come off, had an implant removed, come off hormonal birth control and got pregnant immediately. But equally, I've worked with women who it's been 11 months, 18 months before they've fallen pregnant, because the hormonal birth control depletes things like B vitamins, zinc, selenium, also magnesium as well. So making sure that you do everything you can to build that back up. So making sure that you've got all those antioxidants present, you've got omega-3s, and you've got everything you can to support your body healing from that process of taking hormonal birth control, because it needs to be able to remember what it was supposed to do. And if you've been suppressing it for a long time, then that has a really huge impact on it. So as I said before, cycle 4 was where everything changed for me. And it's what this presentation is about. The information I learned at the point where I was able to conceive, I found it exactly the right point. And that's why I want to share it with other women. That's why I do share it with other women. Learning to read my 3 fertile signs together, and see how basal body temperature, cervical mucus, and cervix position work to show fertility and show which part of the cycle you were in when you were fertile. It's that allowing for that level of precision that no app, no strip, no algorithm could match at all. As a woman, we only have a 6-day fertility window every single cycle. Apps give you educated guesses based on averages. Your body actually has these pure facts. So my conception on cycle 4 wasn't just luck. It's because I understood my body and I acted on it. I do joke that Scarlett, my youngest, was a science experiment. And I don't think everybody needs to behave like that. It's because I was learning. I knew I was going to be doing the course that I now teach from. But that's what I say, is that she was my science experiment. But actually, another factor that I want to touch on very briefly is that we have to remember to enjoy it. You want to make sure that that creating another human is something that is done with absolute joy. I mean, you don't have to, but it makes it so much easier to go through if you enjoy it. And actually, that's what my 87-year-old NFP tutor says. She has 5 children, and she did say it should be fun. Like, it shouldn't be a trial. It should be fun. Yeah, if you enjoy it, I feel like there's a even higher chance of increasing your chances. But that's just my viewpoint. So if you wanted to try and understand how to use fertility awareness to conceive, cervical mucus is the most it's so nuanced because it can be so different for every woman, and it's so important to recognize your signs of fertility, because some women actually don't see cervical mucus and it's a case of feeling it instead. So it's this combination of observation and sensation, and trying to find the right way to work with that. It takes approximately 3 months to get used to things like taking your temperature, to observing the changes that your body goes through. And equally, if your ovulation signs aren't that obvious, then it is it's that case of you're then back to asking strangers on the internet, or going to see a medical professional and trying to get them to work through it as well. So my my new course, because I haven't taught this as a group course before, allows you to learn your fertile signs for your conception journey. So this will be covered over 3 sessions, over 4 to 6 weeks approximately. Everything will be detailed for you. You will understand every single little detail that I can possibly give you. And then when you want to ask questions, I will be there available for support for at least 6 months. You also have access to the Read Your Body app for free for 3 months. And now I know I have dissed apps during this. Read Your Body does not predict anything. It's just allows you to input the information that you that you already know and makes it into a pretty little data graph for you. It's a data visualization tool that is very, very clever. And because this is the first time I'm offering it for £175, so that I can teach it for the first time, basically, and get really excited about helping people get pregnant, helping a group of people get pregnant. So it's to allow you to learn how to listen to your body. So what we will cover, the female and the male cycle, because they work together really beautifully. And also there's so many similarities in the cycles that I just find absolutely fascinating. So I think it's really important to understand that when you are trying to conceive, how those work together. We start with learning basal body temperature because that is the thing that you have to build a habit of. How to track it and what you're looking for with your temperature changes, what it means, what it means if you don't get a temperature rise, what it means if you do get a temperature rise, and how to recognize those throughout. Cervical mucus, as I say, this is my favorite thing. What is cervical mucus? What does it do? How to recognize it, how it works, how to observe it, how to recognize sensations, and to really intimately get to know your body. But also thinking about the factors that influence fertility. So there's a massive study that's been done on medications and lots of different aspects that influence fertility and influence the signs that you see as to whether or not you're fertile. So we can talk about that as well. And then finally, cervix position. It's like the missing piece that helps everything join together. How it changes during the cycle, why it changes and what it means, and then generally bringing it all together with cyclical living for conception, which then actually what's fabulous is that if and when you do get pregnant, after you've had the baby, you can then transfer everything into avoiding pregnancy until you are ready to do it again, if that is what you so choose. And this is just what you will feel after after being part of the course. Recognizing your fertile signs, having that ease so that it's not just a fertile sign, it's your fertile sign. And it's potentially even the first time you've done it since you've been an adult. Getting into that habit of checking your temperature when your alarm goes off, noticing your cervical mucus throughout the day. And all of this just becomes as natural a habit as, something like brushing your teeth or checking your phone. It becomes part of who you are. So no more guessing, no more hoping, just complete and utter confidence that you can trust what you're seeing. And no more using app predictions or frustrating LH strips, and no more asking strangers on Reddit, because you trust your body. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I can't find you. Bring it on.
Should I ask out loud?
Yeah.
I had two questions, but maybe this is stuff that would be covered in the course.
Okay.
The first one is, well, I know that you said basal body temperature. I had questions about that because I had I co-sleep with my toddler, so I usually before we get an hour before we get up, she wakes me, we nurse, and then we sleep some more. And I wondered if that means, because I've only been asleep for an hour by the time my alarm goes off, if it cancels it out.
So ideally with basal body temperature, you'll have been at rest for 3 hours. However, you can, so I did it 2 ways. I had exactly the same situation. A child in the bed with me, and I would either take it whilst nursing and try really hard to cover up the beep of the temperature, because that would make her go like that. Or I actually, for when my youngest was still doing that, I actually took my temperature on an evening. So when I'd nursed her to sleep, put her and sort of read, nurse to sleep, everything, I would take my temperature then, and I actually found I still got a very clear graph, as it were, doing it that way. So there's ways around it, but yeah, ideally it's after rest. I think actually what I discovered was kind of a suck it and see. So I tried it both those ways, and I found the one that gave me the most consistent tracking, essentially. So I've worked with some people who've done it at 2 times of the day as well. So they've done it when they've first woken and then when they've woken again as well, and or done it on an evening. And so you just find a way around it.
Cool. Yeah. And then my other question was, and maybe this would be like a topic for another webinar or something, but so I'm definitely in perimenopause, and it's interesting because my cycle is still very regular, but I don't know if I actually ovulate.
Okay.
Like, I feel like sometimes, yeah. So, actually, I had a question earlier about that, and I can't remember what it was. But then I started thinking it would be great to know, because I know that you can take like certain supplements for perimenopause, collagen, whatever, all of the things that people like for. And I started thinking like, oh, I wonder if the like fertility diet overlaps with that, because I think just because I'm in perimenopause, it doesn't mean that I don't want to like keep trying, or
Yeah.
like I feel like it's like even more important to have healthy eggs.
Really, yeah. 100%.
Because they're like the very last bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yes, it's the same kind of thing. And really everything that I've talked about tonight is about supporting your fertility as much as you can. And for me, like one of the first books I read, or the book that really landed for me when I was first learning about this, is called The Fifth Vital Sign, because in about 12 years ago, roundabout, I remember the exact date, the College of Obstetricians declared that ovulation is a fifth vital sign. So doing everything you can to support your body with ovulation or with ovulating is really important. If you were to track basal body temperature, you would hopefully see whether or not you're ovulating, because that's what it does. It helps you confirm that. The only other way is to literally get an abdominal scan on the right day at the right time. So and so yeah, it would start to give you that idea of that. I'll tell you something that I've tried. So last year my cycle had started getting shorter, which is really peculiar, and I've always had a 13-day luteal phase, so that's the phase post ovulation. And my cycle was going down to like 25, 26 days, and it was making me crazy. So I was like, I don't like having a period this often. And it's not that I don't like my period and I don't get any pain. I just didn't want it that often. And I started taking beef organ capsules. And the really weird thing that happened is that it hasn't increased my follicular phase pre-ovulation. However, what it has done is increase my luteal phase. So my luteal phase has gone from being like 13 days to 16. And that's a really long luteal phase. So that was just a really interesting thing for me to try out. And my charts, as they are, like everything I'm tracking shows that I'm still ovulating, and everything else hadn't changed. It was just this shortened period, and I was like, it's really annoying. And so I was really happy when I found a way to extend it. And I stopped taking them for a month, and it went short again, and so I've started taking them again. So
What were the capsules, did you say?
Beef organ capsules.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you can't taste it.
Yeah, but the short cycle is definitely one of the things that I'm experiencing. So
yeah. So basically what's happening with that is that we've got less estrogen. So you ovulate sooner. That's my understanding. Anyway. So because of that, so I'm still ovulating quite early, but the extended luteal phase is meaning that the cycles are longer. So and the luteal phase is obviously when you're trying to conceive, is the important bit. It's the bit where the baby is implanting and getting comfortable. So I was like, well, if it were something I wanted to do, at least I know that that's still there. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm gonna go and run around. Unless you got any other questions.
No, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll speak to you soon.